So in this course, the only trigonometry graph we look like is the sine graph, which is pretty much the easiest one to comprehend or understand. There is cosine, but just for this course, we're going to be focusing on the sine graph. But before we go on to the sine graph, we need to focus on what a period is, what a periodic behavior is. So a function that produces a graph that has a regular repeating pattern over a constant level is called a sinusoidal function. So a sinusoidal function is a periodic function whose graph looks like a smooth symmetric wave where any portion of the can be horizontally translated onto another portion of the curve. So basically, if you ever look at a heart monitor looks like waves. It can represent a sine function, which is what we are accustomed to. So like I said, we have sine and cosine. In this case, we're just going to focus on sine. So the cycle of a periodic function is a change in the independent variable corresponding to one cycle. A cycle of a periodic function is a portion of the graph that repeats itself. So there is a high point and a low point. So the low point is the minimum on the graph, and the high point is the maximum point on the graph. So if you look at the graph over here, so the number 3 would be my highest point, and the number 1 would be my low point. And then where the graph splits in half, that's called the axis of symmetry, is the equation of the horizontal line halfway between the max and the minimum. So this is determined by, we're going to add both of them together and divide it by 2. So the y is equal to highest point minus lowest point, and then you're going to divide it by 2. So the amplitude, this is what's next. The amplitude is the half the distance between the max and the min values. It is also the vertical distance from the function's axis to the max or the min. So the amplitude is going to be the highest point. So sorry, this should be plus for the equation of the axis. So the amplitude is the highest minus the lowest, and you divide that by 2. So that would be amplitude. So now, for example, here we have the height of a nail is stuck in between a bike wheel. So let's just focus on what the high points and the low points are. So the highest it reaches is 62 centimeters. So this is the highest, and the lowest it goes is 0. So when it comes to a period either goes from top to top or bottom to bottom. So if we look at our graph over here, the top is over here and the top is over here, okay? Or we can look at the bottoms over here and the bottom over here. So from bottom to bottom, 3 seconds pass by, which means that the period is 3 seconds. So this is what we call the period. So the period is how long it takes to complete one cycle. So the period is 3 seconds. The period represents a single rotation of the bike wheel. So now it is asking us what the diameter of the wheel is. So remember, diameter is all the way across. So if we look at this as a wheel, so if I draw circles here, this is the wheel of the bicycle. So Like I said, diameter goes all the way through. So my diameter here is going to be 62 centimeters. Okay, it's asking us approximately how high above the ground is the nail at 2 seconds. So at 2 seconds, we're around over here. So we can safely assume it's around 50 centimeters. The next question is, what times is the nail highest above the ground? So that would be at, so this is 0, halfway between 0 and 3 is 1.5 seconds. 3 to 6, we have 4.5 seconds. And then 6 to 9, we have 7.5 seconds. So when is the nail 31 centimeters above the ground? Okay, so that happens at the middle. So this would be 31. So it happens around, let's say, 1 second, 2.5, 4 seconds, 5.5, 7 seconds, and 8.5 seconds. Okay, again, I'm just approximating. We're just looking at a specific diagram right now. So if we extend the graph of the periodic function, we can make a reasonable prediction. So what would the height of the nail be in the example above after 15 seconds? So if we continue at 9 seconds, it's at 0. If we add another 3 seconds, it will be at the highest point. And if we add another 3 seconds, it will be back at the bottom. So at 15 seconds, my height is going to be 0. Okay, so this is just a quick lesson on a period. So remember, periods go from top to top or bottom to bottom. The axis of symmetry is found by adding the highest and the lowest and dividing by 2. And to find the amplitude, it's the highest minus the lowest and divided by 2. Okay, so what we're going to work on next is we're going to figure out what a sine function actually is.